Welcome, everybody, to the show. This is Counterclipping Show number 181 for July 15th, 2024. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Let me put the ticker up. Whilst I remind everybody to like the video and a thumbs up or whatever it is, whatever platform you're on. Apparently, we're not streaming live on Twitter anymore because now you got to pay Elon Musk to do that. So we will not be doing that. So bye-bye to streaming on Twitter at this time. Maybe at some point we can go live on TikTok, but I do not know that StreamYard supports that. But in any case, we will not be doing it this evening. So our topic tonight is European wargame publishers. This is something that I think too few Americans or too many Americans don't know enough about, and I include myself in that grouping. We are clipping the greatest day Utah Beach. I'm taking a break from Atlantic Wall to get this done. We will see how it organizes. If I have to do special mojo to organize it, I will do a video about that. There is already another video in the can, but not yet edited, for the Storage Solutions series, which will talk about the Aegis magazine trays, which are now available. And I will have a link in that video description when that video comes out, probably next week at this point. So I'm going to have a special disclaimer here tonight, folks. Certain contemporary news items will not be discussed here. Now, I realize people have opinions. That's fine. However, you can go absolutely anywhere on the internet and get your absolute fill of it. So don't do it here. Let's take a break. Consider this a break room, if you will, from the news and the doom scrolling that we're all doing. So in any case, please restrain yourselves or you will get a timeout like a second grader. We are drinking the last of the Basil Hayden bourbon. I am committed to destroying that this evening, and we did save the cork. So that is good. All right. So once again, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, or follow if you're on Twitch. I'd like to give a shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whose support and encouragement we wouldn't be able to keep doing this. So thank you, patrons. There'll be a thing at the end of the video. And, some stuff in the ticker, which I have not updated, although the Discord link in the ticker is updated for this week. So if you want to get in on the Ardwulf Lair Discord community, either follow that link or send me an email. Email's also in the ticker, and let me know, and we will get that taken care of for you with a personalized invitation. I also want to give a big shout out to the fine folks at Noble Knight, who are the official sponsor of the Counterclipping Show, and we will be hearing from them this evening. And I also I didn't bring it over here, so I'm not going to flash it, but I did have a pickup, which was actually not from Noble Knight. It was from eBay in this case. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. Super chats and super stickers are on. It's a great way to support the show as well as get your comment highlighted. I am guaranteed not to. All right, sorry about that. That was the tab crashing again. That was not me. And of course, I got a screen share that I now have to reload. So let's pull that back down. So sorry about that. That might happen again. So super chats and super stickers are on. So great way to get your comment highlighted. I am guaranteed to respond to a super chat or super sticker comment. Even if I don't have a great answer, I will give you an answer. And there's a whole bunch of links to support the channel, including the Noble Knight affiliate link. And I do not have any campaign updates this week to talk about. Maybe by next week we will do so. There's a whole bunch of links in the video description with which you can support the channel, and that support is much appreciated. No, it's punched. It's just not clipped and organized yet. So in any case, so I had put, by the way, the bingo cards were linked in the video in the chat. So if anybody wants to, I'll throw it in there again right now for anybody that would like to participate in the Ardwulf's Lair off-topic bingo. We have like an actual legit topic here tonight, and not sort of loose, flabby topics like we've had the last couple of weeks, frankly. So before we go any further, let's say hello to Alistair Logie, Andrew Cook, B. Atkins, Bannet, Brant from the Armchair Dragoons, Brent McCabe, Christopher Smith, Daniel Silverthorne, Dave Scott, Dave Kittleson, David Zell, Eric Goebel, Eric Hansen, Garrison Venn, Greendale CD. Welcome to the show. Grunyard Rich, Groucho Marks, the legend himself, Fucko, is in the house. James Whitmer, Joe Faust from sunny Northeast Ohio. Sunny and rather steamy this evening. Joe Okabayashi, Joe Mentum, John Haas. John, thanks for stopping by. John Mogg, John Stanley, John Clark, Jonathan Dyer, Kilgore Trout, Kyle Harris, Lee Grant, Manders, Marty Sample is here, Meandering Mike, Michael Avanzini, Mike Reed, Molotov Cockatiel Games, Panzer Division Lair, Paul Dangle, Perfidious Albion, Perry Sparopoulos, Rob Johnson, Spare Rib, welcome to the show. Snacking Limit, Tim Zales, Vicky, welcome back. Vince Reed, William Bird, and Winterson, and Wolf Dog. I apologize if I have missed anybody else. Doug Blayard is here. Be Red, and welcome to the show. It's great to see everybody out this evening. So we have, so normally when I put these like lists shows together, the target is normally 20 things, whatever it is, right? And I think I've got a little more than that tonight, but a couple of them are going to go relatively quick because they are new publishers. We do have a little bit of news, although I don't have like a visual aid for it. WBC starting in a couple of weeks, so we'll be going out there for a weekend-ish type of thing. The Consim World Expo in Tempe, Arizona is going on right now. I do have my agents on the scene taking pictures for me, so I may have some pictures to show off next week, but we will see how that works. In any case, I am... So I'll talk a little bit about how to organize this thing, although that's still kind of up in the air because, man, there's a lot in this game. So I don't have any other news updates aside from that. So I consider the storage of War in Europe in the Cube for Me trays to have been a huge and smashing success. However, this is a little different because it's still only it's a big flat box, but it's still only a 2-inch box, and there's a lot of paper in there. So I'm not going to. So I can get 3 Cube for Me trays in that box, and I don't think this game will store in 3 Cube for Me trays. Let me put it that way. But Cube for Me trays have a little extra flexibility since they come in different depths and configurations. So we may still be able to make it happen. I'm just not sure yet, and I'm kind of the bottom of the box is sitting on the table in the room behind me with the counters stacked up and organized. So unusually for me, I am punching and clipping everything and then putting it in trays. That is not my normal methodology. But we will, Ed Holtzman, welcome back to the show, but we will see how it goes. And like I said, if the solution or non-solution, as the case may be, is interesting, I will report back. If I end up having to put it all in baggies like I did with Gold Juno and Sword, then that is not newsworthy. We do not need a video about that. So, in any case, let's get some water here. My water bottle stickers came in. Long Range Desert Group. I was happy about that. I get those from Redbubble, by the way, who has a pretty good selection of that general kind of thing. They're not custom. They're just like, you can find them. Just search for Long Range Desert Group, and they've got stickers for that. You want a 29th Infantry Division stickers, they got them. So, in any event, so it's the impression of a lot of American wargamers, board wargamers, that the European scene is dominated by miniatures. And I think that's true in the UK, but not necessarily in the rest of Europe, right? Which is rather distinct from the UK, as the Europeans will be delighted to tell you. And even in the UK, I've got 2 or 3 publishers in the UK on this list, at least one of which is no longer active. So let's actually get started with that. And I am going, William Aarons, thanks for stopping by. All right, so let's pull this up. You're not going to get much in the way of the live comments tonight, and start with certain publishers that are no longer active. And I'm doing all of these. They're in 2 groups, not active and active. And inside those groups, they are in alphabetical order. So the first publisher, no longer active, that I want to talk about is Azure Wish Enterprises. They were out of France, and they did not have a huge number of games, but the games that they did have continue to be impactful games. They're top rate, and I've sorted these in terms of BGG rating. That's, not worth anything really. It's just useful because the games we've heard of will be toward the top of the lists. So you'll recognize games like Le Grand Guerre on here and Europa Universalis, the original board game version. which the only thing from Azure Wish that I've ever had is Le Grand Guerre. Thank you, Mike, for fulfilling that Grail project. But I am also interested in my ability to do French is limited today. Wargaming was invented in Europe. That's absolutely correct. I think we can, unless you're going to try and trace wargaming back to the invention of chess or Go or something like that, I think the logical place to start talking about war games, quote unquote, is the Kriegspiels, which takes us back to 19th century Prussia. So this is absolutely true. So I've heard this is true, even though Azure Wish, but who is the owner exactly? To whom does one reach out? I think this is a cool idea. So the other ones that I'm interested in here are Hispania, La Révolution Française, which is about the French Revolution, and Russia 1917. And there's this Grand Sequel. I'm not sure what this even is. I looked at this at one point. This is Europe in the 1700s, and it looks very Azure Wish. It's actually probably one of the better looking Azure Wish games because their graphics were, this is 90s, right? So bear that in mind. I feel they should be cut some slack, but they weren't the greatest looking games graphically that I've ever seen. The Grand Guerre looks basically fine. The map's not great, but the counters are completely fine. But so this was an interesting publisher, and the prime movers behind Azure Wish, or at least one of them, went on to work on the Europa Universalis video game, which continues to be popular today. If you've no, there were going to be arguments about the next thing that came along after Kriegspiel about whether it was a Kriegspiel or not. So, and that's got like a built-in pun in there too. So there you go. So, and the first set of like commercial wargaming rules was H.G. Wells with Little Wars. It was a set of miniatures rules. But let's not forget that as far as I'm aware, the first set of miniatures rules was designed by H.G. Wells. Yes, that H.G. Wells. I wouldn't say they're tiny. They're about the same size as your standard U.S. wargaming counters at a roughly half an inch. However, they are a little cluttered. I've seen more cluttered, though. Hell, these are not the ones I'm clipping at the moment, but these GTS counters are just as cluttered, and they're 5/8 of an inch. So I didn't really see much of an issue with that from my thus far perusal of Le Grand Guerre. And we will have there's video projects in the works, let me put it that way, that are going to kind of attack what the channel covers from a couple of different angles. Let me put it that way. And I'll be more equipped to talk about that in the next couple of weeks. We'll see. In any case, definitely worth keeping an eye on Azure Wish. If you find this stuff at a reasonable price, it's worth grabbing. Now, of course, you can always go to Noble Knight, and they usually have at least a couple of these in stock at any given time. But they are relatively pricey. They're not all as pricey as Le Grand Guerre, but they are all relatively pricey. And if you can get them at anything like what you would expect to pay today for a game of comparable size, and bear in mind, they are bigger boxes than you typically get. So these are not mini games. I'm not aware of that anything that your Azure Wish did was particularly small. So, but Le Grand Guerre was definitely a grail. All right, we've got 2 markers done. We've got the airdrops and the glider drop markers done. Now we're starting to work on the American mines. I'm not really sure why we needed 2 separate sets of different mine counters, but there they go. The boxes are indeed, well, the one I got anyway, which is Le Grand Guerre, it's a weird box. It's sort of got this like hollow walled type of thing going on, and that makes the walls quite delicate. Incidentally, the thing that the score, before we go any further with this, I meant to mention this before pulling up the slideshow. The score this week on eBay was the Chaosium Ringworld RPG, which I got for $79 and change plus shipping, which is an excellent price. It is the insides are in good shape. There's like some cardboard stand-ups in it that are cut out, but I think they're all there at a glance. All the books and stuff are there. The box is absolutely flattened, but I can live with that because I believe it to be basically repairable. So, Mean Joe Green says that Hispania was a Britannia-type game. That appears to line up with my understanding of it. This is being played on a wall. You could tell from the magnetic counter holders. Pretty decent-looking map here, but I suspect this was generated from a satellite map or a composite photograph or something like that. And this is an Ancients games, Roman conquest, or at least Roman involvement in the Iberian Peninsula. And it does somewhat sound like it's, it even says Series Britannia game system. So Lou Pulsifer, I'm sure, is delighted. So, well, we're making up for last week where it was literally like 9 p.m. before we even mentioned the topic. So I am reasonably sure that that is a new product. And I didn't get Draco on this list. Yeah. So the problem with the shelves is IKEA doesn't have them in stock. As soon as they have them in stock, I can buy them, but they don't have them. So I'm just waiting on them to get them in stock. And if it comes to that, I may end up just sucking it up and getting white ones instead. So in any case. All right. So moving on from Azure Wish, there's another publisher here. Fifth Column Games, and this was a UK publisher, and it was basically this guy, Daniel Hodges, and they didn't do a lot of stuff, but one of these games, this Where There Is, well, two of these games actually have attracted significant amounts of attention. I am seeing pictures from the Consim World Expo event in Tempe on various social medias, so you should be seeing those already. So thank you, Garrison Venn, for the support. It is much appreciated. Shelving's a little bit behind, not for money reasons, but because of IKEA didn't freaking have them, which is annoying. So the two things that I think everybody will have heard of here is Where There Is Discord, which is Falklands War, and it's a pretty cool looking game. I've seen it on a shelf. I've never even tried to investigate it thoroughly. And of course, Lost Battles, which is the Phil Sabin project, which a lot of people seem to have a relatively high opinion of, but which does not have as high a rating on BGG as Where There Is Discord. So I think we have to consider Fifth Column Games here to be inactive at the moment, but because it's somebody's basically personal imprint, they could pop back up at some point. So Jason W., thanks for stopping by. And Jonathan Dyer, thanks as well. All right, Geo Games. I am not sure where these folks are. No, I take that back. And I've got notes here, so I should be actually looking at the notes. This is an Italian publisher. And the most interesting looking thing, and in fact, the only thing from them that I have even glanced at previously is this thing, Viva l'Empereur, which is a title that's been used several times. It is tactical Napoleonics. So you can see that at a glance, it looks like it may superficially resemble something like Commands and Colors. I would not expect vast tactical detail from this system, but it could be fun. Other than that, I do not know anything about this particular publisher. And in fact, oh, nice. Green Joe Green says there's a couple of YouTube playthroughs of Code Word Cromwell. That's actually pretty cool. And German invasion of England. Okay, so this is a sea lion type of thing. And this looks tactical as well, actually. Yeah, this looks very tactical. That's weird. I'm not sure why you would want to play that out at a tactical level, to be honest. I mean, if that's somebody's thing, cool, but that does not strike me as a good fit of scale and topic. All right, so Vince really enjoyed Where There Is Discord. Only played it once. And Alistair Logie mentions that Yves Rattel of Red Strike fame is making a Falklands game based on that system, which itself, I believe, is a derivative of or inspired, at least, by Gulf Strike. So that's cool. I think that we are probably going to see, barring some misfortune, we are probably going to see an extensive line of products based on that system from Yves and VUCA and whoever else would like to be involved. Alistair's not sure if the Falklands game is coming before or after Desert Strike 2. I've heard about the Desert Strike or Gulf Strike 2 or whatever we're calling it. So Hexy is here. Thanks for stopping by. So as far as I know, they're calling it Gulf Strike 2, but that they could change the title. I would consider that a working title at the moment. So that's all the European publishers. Again, we're talking board war games here. If we were opening up to miniatures, I wouldn't even know where to start. And a couple of the publishers that are on the list have done some stuff in miniatures, but they've also done board war games. So that's all the defunct publishers that I've got. And it was hard enough to come up with a list of all of these. So when we start moving on to the active publishers, these are publishers that, as far as I am aware, are still doing stuff. And I make no claims that I will be pronouncing anything accurately here, so give it up. So this is Hexasim from Italy. They have some interesting looking things. This game, Burning Mountains 1916, is a World War I game. This is from Parabellum magazine, which is, so it's a magazine game, and you'll find, we're going to mention Vevictus here, obviously, and they're going to have a huge number of games, but bear that in mind that they publish a magazine, and a lot of those are magazine games. I don't know anything about these guys. There appears to be some kind of move to get this back in print from Compass. I don't know anything about that. Apparently, it was already in Paper Wars, so there you go. Shows how closely I'm paying attention to that. I've seen this issue, but I have not investigated the game at all. This would probably be the Compass version. Yeah, this is the Compass version. I would assume this is one of the Isonzo River battles. So yeah, spring 1916 Austro-Hungarian offensive. So most of these offensives didn't get very far, let's put it that way. Justigard says Burning Mountains is great. Uses Resch's World War I system, but improves it. Did a video about it. Is this I thought this was the Mike Resch Galicia game that you had done the video on. I missed this one if you had done a video on this as well. So Ices Edizioni. This looks, they've got some interesting looking things. We've got some other stuff from Parabellum magazine here as well. So they've got a total of how many? 30 products. Now, you're going to find in some cases that, like in the case of Sound of Drums, which we'll talk about, where they've got like 20 plus products listed, but they've actually only released like 2 or 3. So some folks are like ahead of the curve on getting their game listed on BGG, even though it's not going to be out for a little bit yet. So, yep, Charles Latoro, welcome back to the show. Yeah, it looks like from about 5 years ago in Paper Wars. So it's probably, and Justigard's done both. So folks, go check that out. You should be subscribed to him anyway. So Aces Edizioni. Next up, whoops, that's from them. Next up is Bellica 3rd Generation. And I had not heard of this publisher, although I had heard of 1 or 2 of the games. Obviously not a thing that I'm super, I will mention it if I have any games from any of these publishers. So we've got their highest rated game is this Santa Cruz 1797. Card-driven block game, Night Battle of Santa Cruz de Tenerife in 1797. So yeah, this is War of the First Coalition, actually. That's actually fairly interesting. And it is a block game, as you can see from here. I've actually read a little bit about this situation, too. This is where, if I'm not mistaken, Nelson leads the land forces. So fairly interesting and pretty cool cover, too, I think we have to say. And it's Ivan Carceres, designer. That's a great question. Some of them, the answer is definitely yes. Some of them, the answer is very plausibly no. I'll mention it if I know the answer to this question. Sometimes you'll have to like download the English rules, which I'm basically completely fine with. So Mike says that 2016 for the Parabellum version of Burning Mountain and Paper Wars was a year later, which makes complete sense. So yeah, Brant has his eyes on a lot of these publishers actually, which would have made it a great place to start, frankly, Brant, if I'd have thought to check that rather than just figuring it out of memory. Mike says that Parabellum has English rules on their website, and Vevictus, that's also true. There, you could typically at least get the English rules via download. And several of the other ones, Hexasim, for example, at least these days, universally has English rules available somewhere. So, and web, and all the how many Hexasim games do I have? 5? Yeah, I've got 5 Hexasim games, all of which include English rules in the box. So Santa Cruz does indeed mean Holy Cross in Spanish, more or less. Sacred Cross, technically, but now I'm being pedantic, literally pedantic. So Bellica 3rd generation. These guys are Spanish, actually. If I said Italian, they are Spanish. This Mediterranean Empires is another that looks relatively interesting. If we look at the map, it's actually kind of a fairly attractive map. And this is kind of an ancient civ building type of thing, too, as far as I could tell. And I've seen this Coral Sea as well. It's got that kind of tacky Chinese restaurant font going on there, which I think we all disapprove of at this point. But this is 14 years old, so maybe we cut them some slack for that, I suppose. So I'm not 100% sure. Well, I'm not 100% sure that Bellica 3rd generation is still doing anything, but if we go by year released, we'll see that that Santa Cruz game is, in fact, their most recent release. So, and I've actually heard of this Punic Island, too. And this appears to be kind of like an operational type of, like an area operational type of thing. This map is substantially less attractive and, in fact, rather boring. But the Punic Island is Sicily, by the way. So McFudpucker, thanks for stopping by. Marty says that the Bellica Stalingrad game was weird. The end game, no front lines. That's interesting. That's probably not super duper desirable. But in any case, Bellica, hopefully they're going to be back at some point. Who knows, what fatalities COVID caused amongst the publishing circles in Europe. I just don't have good visibility on that, but that's why I'm doing this show. And if I've missed anybody at the end, I want people to speak up and remind me of who I've missed, because I'm sure I have not been 100% airtight comprehensive on this. All right, so next up is Disimula Edizioni. This is another Italian publisher, obviously, and there's a couple of these that have drawn my attention, including this from Salerno to Rome, the Italian campaign. This looks great, and I have had people whose taste I have faith in tell me it is great. Give Us Victories and Radetzky's March, actually. There's a couple of different Radetzky's Marches, and I'm not 100% sure which thing I'm talking about. And then this, we're going to take a look at this thing, too. So this came out of 2020. So this is actually 4 years old. Noble Knight has had this in the past. I don't know if they have it in stock at the moment. And domestically, unless you can order it from their the publisher's website and not pay like European shipping and VAT and all that other nonsense, Noble Knight would be the first place I would look for these European publishers. By and large, you can get Vevictus and Hexasim stuff directly from GMT, and at least a couple other ones as well. So Mannering Mike mentions that the Bellica 3rd generation does have games for pre-order on their website, so they're still notionally active. Ooh, Quarterdeck International. That's a good point. Quarterdeck is pretty much Jack Green. Am I wrong about that, Brant? So from Salerno to Rome, obviously, I'm super interested in this topic. And relatively few games have covered the Italian campaign. Relatively few games. It's not like there's none, but there's not that many. As opposed to Sicily, where there's a fair number of games on Sicily. Spare Rib, thanks for stopping by. Says GMT doesn't carry Vevictus anymore. That's news to me, but I haven't ordered. I'm not sure I've ever ordered anything from Vevictus from GMT, but I have ordered Hexasim stuff from them. We will be talking about Tactica e Strategia from Poland. There's 2 Polish publishers on the list. There's probably more publishers from Italy on the list than from any other country, but there's also quite a few from France, a couple from Germany, 2 from Poland, 1 from Russia, which I had heard of the publisher. I just didn't realize they were Russian. So this looks interesting as well. This is Chancellorsville. Give us victories. And this got a CSR nod, I think, a couple of years ago as well. Fairly nice looking map. Don't know a whole lot about the game. Sergio Schiavi, but Sergio Schiavi is a fairly well-regarded director. No, there's a couple from the UK. I've got, so counting Fifth Column, which appears to be inactive at this time, there are 3 from the UK that I have. This is a great question. There's a number of reasons why I think this could be the case. One, maybe there's just a more hop and war game scene in Italy. I can attest that there certainly appears to be a hop and war game scene in Italy because they've got conventions and all kinds of stuff going on over there. But Italian publishers may just be a little bit better for whatever reason at making sure that American customers know they exist. And that might be a little more difficult for some other publishers, but we've got a couple from Spain. We've got 1 from Portugal. I think 2 from Spain total. 1 from Spain total, and it's Bellica 3rd generation. There's also 4 Dados or whatever it's called, which does some wargaming stuff. They're not on my list, but they have released a couple of things that I would consider a wargame or wargame adjacent type of things. And couple of these publishers have a lot of non-war games too, just to give you a heads up on that. Joseph Syverson, thanks for stopping by. Got in the 2nd edition of Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Spear. Oh, okay. Well, that version of it is probably hard to get in the US at least, but there is the version of it that came out from Multi-Man in Operations Special Ops Magazine, I want to say. There's at least one other Spanish one. Right? Maybe I am missing more Spanish ones. So, there you go. Charles Latorre confirms that, damn it. Draco I've missed, and NAC War Games. I'll feel bad for having missed them, but we'll see if we can look them up at the end here. So Give Us Victories looks interesting. Radetzky's March. There's a couple of these. Also Sergio Schiavi games. This is one of the other ones. This thing looks amazing, and I have every intention of grabbing this. Sicily 1943 Operation Husky. It's like a 3 or it kind of looks like 2 maps in this picture, but it's a big Sicily game, and I would love to have another big Sicily game, I suppose. So if I search for NAC War Games here on our friends at BGG, NAC War Games, and who is the other one? DeVere. We'll look at DeVere. Got to spell it right, or it won't come up. DeVere. Draco. I shouldn't have forgotten NAC War Games either. All right, so we'll take a look at these as well. So Sicily 1943 here looks dynamite. This ought to be out later this year. All right, NAC War Games has done a bunch of stuff. Now you're going to see like a couple publishers this will fall into where they've got a variety of other things. Like NAC War Games is listing Europa Universalis The Price of Power, but they're not the primary publisher for that. That's A-Gear Games. Plus a bunch of GMT stuff, which they're, again, they are the local publisher. And again, they are Spanish. They've done a bunch of stuff for a bunch of other publishers, but a lot of the stuff that they do is stuff that's not necessarily just theirs. However, that said, a couple of these are theirs specifically. That includes this thing, La Guerra de la Triple Allianza. This is the War of the Triple Alliance in South America. This is actually a super interesting topic, and this is a very well-regarded game. Also, La Carga de los Tres Reyes, the Charge of the Three Kings. Awesome title and a great cover, by the way. And this is just them, too. And this is a medieval battle, which I know basically nothing about. Although it sounds like it's part of Reconquista. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Decent looking map, great cover. Some might find this cover cartoony, but I think it's actually really strong cover personally. Warlord and Bolt Action, I'm not covering those because they're miniatures, and I mean, I'm not your guy for miniatures, right? So, Jonathan Dyer says that Sicily game is a 4 mapper, which sounds awesome. I'm all aboard on that. So we've got your NAC War Games. We've got Devere Games, which has done a variety of things. That there's 747 things here, though. So they appear to be in charge of localization on a variety of things. But the thing that jumps out at me here is War of the Ring, which is totally a war game, by the way. And I believe this is a second edition of a game that was published in the U.S. originally by Fantasy Flight Games before Fantasy Flight ceased to be a functioning entity, as far as I could tell, since they got gobbled up. This is a really, really strong game. And if frankly, I would have walked out of Origins with this in any of the last 5 years had anybody had it for sale at any point. So... Brant says that Devere was founded in Brazil, which is news to me, which means they don't count. So we're going to stop talking about them. Draco Ideas does count, however. They are in Spain, and they've done a bunch of fairly interesting looking things as well. But their BGG lists are going to, again, be kind of cluttered up with localized versions of games that we can get relatively easily. But this 300 Earth and Water is one example of a game that has drawn some positive attention. Onus Trianus is another one. 1815 Scum of the Earth is another one. And We Are Coming Nineveh. Don't think they're the only publisher. A lot of these are not going to be the only publishers. So this 300 Earth and Water, this is Thermopylae, as far as I could... actually... No, it looks rather strategic in scope, doesn't it? So it's basically that conflict, though. We've also got this Onus Rome versus Carthage, which appears to be a card game of some kind. Stalingrad Inferno on the Volga. This drew some attention when it was first released. I believe this to be a block game. Am I right about that? Yep, it's a block hex map block game about Stalingrad. So it's pretty much exactly what you think it is. This is a terrible. Well, I can't zoom in on this image, unfortunately. All right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know who the hell to get. This part of the issue is I don't know who the hell to even buy it from. Right. If I would totally own that game. I think it's a very strong game. And I just don't know where to freaking, I mean, I do know where to get it. I can order from Noble Knight, but, Wolfdog says that Onus is basically a miniatures game using cards. We will be talking about Nuts Publishing later on here. Brand says that Draco's big things are the 2GM World War II card game with a lot of expansions and the Onus games. This Saladin game, I also really I think this is a maybe atypical cover for a war game, but I actually think it's a very strong and punchy cover. I think Shakos was the original primary publisher here, and Devere is probably, or Draco is just one of the. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I get anything from Noble Knight, basically. So, including stuff like this. So, and they have actually a line. Noble Knight actually has like contacts with a lot of these. I don't know about any specific publisher necessarily, but with a lot of the European publishers, Noble Knight will actually like stock them. So it's not like they're just like third-hand games that somebody dumped. So they'll actually be like stocking the products. They definitely do that with Disimula Edizioni. So this Onus Trianus is actually, it doesn't really look like my kind of thing. Let me put it that way. But it did seem to draw some positive attention. 1815 Scum of the Earth. This is another one that's really kind of a card game or miniatures game with cards. We Are Coming Nineveh. The primary on this is Nuts Publishing. We'll talk about that when we get to them. But that's a game that has, even as relatively uninterested in modern stuff as I am, even I am interested in that. So Todd Cox, thanks for stopping by. I don't know what that is. And Mr. Carl Fung, thank you for stopping by, Carl. Good to see you. Mike Reed says Shakos is from France. Yes, Shakos is from France. Shit, I don't have Shakos on this list. Do I? I don't have Shakos on this list. That's kind of unforgivable. Hey, it was a lot. There was a bunch on here that I'm proud of myself for having caught. So let's pull Shakos up and take a look. Let's actually go over here. Because Shakos has had some noteworthy and interesting things. And again, our list is going to be a little bit cluttered up here. Now, the big things that I have heard about from them that have a very strong reputation is where is it? Damn it. Is this series. What is this series called? This series is called Conquerors. And as far as I'm aware, there's 3 games out, and they are all Napoleonic at this point. You've got Napoleon 1806, which is basically Napoleon in Prussia. And these are basically operational games. You can see it's a point-to-point map. We've got Napoleon 1807, which kind of tacks on to the end of 1806, right? Because this is the campaign that's going to include Eylau and Friedland, because everybody loves a good Eylau game. And then Napoleon 1815. I'd love to see them do I'm not the only person to ever express this sentiment. I'd love to see them do 1809, but I think we need more campaigns on the 1809 campaign. Justigard points out that they have a sort of somewhat random initiative system, somewhat like GCACW, and that is fairly interesting. Napoleon 1870, that would be potentially intriguing, actually. We'd be talking at that point about Franco-Prussian War. And Napoleon III, everybody's favorite Napoleon, as you know. I've actually got a book. Picked up an ebook of a biography of Napoleon III, which I totally intend to read, actually. All right, Headquarter War Games mentioned by Brandt. We are not going to be investigating them. So they do both tabletop and digital. So it's worth a look if you're so interested. But moving on from Shakos, and Shakos, what else did they have that was intriguing? Again, a lot of these are localized versions of games you've already seen. Downfall of Empires and Downfall of the Third Reich. These are from Do It Games, and these are actually fairly well regarded from what I can tell. They're kind of very quick, smooth playing. One of them is World War I, Downfall of Empires, Downfall of the Third Reich is World War II, in Europe, obviously. So, not a bad looking map, I gotta say. And actually the box is kind of sharp too. So Shakos is worth a look as well, folks. All right. Now here's a company I've actually personally owned some product from. This is Europa Simulazioni, which is personally my personal favorite wargame publisher name. And I've got several of their games, and I haven't played any of them yet, but I'm reasonably impressed with. This was, if I'm not mistaken, prior to getting captured at whatever the battle was, Sedan, I think. So, nor should Napoleon Dynamite, I suppose. So, mostly the answer is yes. And in the case of Europa Simulazioni, I can tell you that at least everything I have from them does have English rules available. Again, in the cases I have in the package. Their Guelphs and Ghibellines game looks fairly interesting. What else do I have? I just recently picked up El Gran Capitan, which looks great. There's these 2 games, 1813 Napoleon's Nemesis and 1812 Invasion of Russia, which are linkable, which are operational, card-driven on a hex grid games, which I'd love to actually play. There's a whole bunch of stuff that looks very good from Europa Simulazioni. This Guelphs and Ghibellines is a tactical game as well, or grand tactical, if you like. There we go. Once again, Justigard is ahead of the curve on the rest of us here with the Italian games, at least. Yeah, Spare Rib, that whole Mexican adventure, as we call it, did occur prior to Napoleon, because that was the end of Napoleon III, was when he got captured. So there's Napoleon III is worth investigating, because we have this. I think there's an idea, especially among wargamers who know him primarily for getting his bottom spanked in the Franco-Prussian War, he did a great deal to modernize France in the first half of its reign, and then kind of fucked up in the second half of his reign when he started to think that he was like the better Napoleon, which was obviously not accurate. So, oh, that's interesting. Meandering Mike says those two Napoleonic games have neoprene maps available, which would be interesting. But I rather like them for what they are, right? So I picked this up. I'm pretty sure I got this through Noble Knight. This looks very impressive. This is Italian Wars, so interesting topic. It's a gorgeous looking game. The pieces are nice. The map is gorgeous. It's, again, does have English rules, and it is not. My other two things from Europa Simulazioni are Ziplocs. This is actually in a roughly 1.5-inch box. This would be the Ridley Scott Napoleon, as you know, Molotov Cockatiel games. So in any case, this is actually correct too. They did send some guys down to the border just to kind of make sure everything was going to be okay after that. So this looks impressive. This invasion of Russia, this is exactly what it sounds like. Here's basically the entire map as far as I can recall. And again, this like tacks directly on to the east of the 1813 game. So you can play that 1813 game like immediately after this one ends, and what's left of the Grande Armée trudges back to Germany. Need more whiskey. All right. Patchwork pictures coming through for me. Thank you so much. All right. And then here's 1813 Napoleon's Nemesis. This also looks good. You'll see that it's very similar map style. And I would call this, I'd call it a high level operational. So this is a European publisher that I am reasonably familiar with. Although certainly not as familiar with their product line as I would be for, say, GMT or Multiman, where I could just rattle off what's available to you off the top of my head a lot of the time. Europa Simulazioni has a bunch of cool looking stuff, and they are definitely not particularly hard to get. Again, Noble Knight carries their stuff. Fellowship of Simulations. This is a relatively young publisher. I didn't sort this by date, but let's do that because their first released game was just 2020, and that was Verdun 1916 Steel Inferno, which was very warmly received. In addition to that, they've got this Napoleon's Conquests game, which looks intriguing. This Vendée 93, which looks intriguing. Wars of Religion in France. This looks like it might be interesting, but I'm not sure I know enough about it. And this is the map, and I'm not really sure how to interpret this, so I'd need to learn more about this. So this is about the rebellion in the Vendée. It's part of Brittany. Does that sound right? That does not sound correct. And I think this isn't quite out yet, but it's Western France. There's a sort of royalist stronghold over there that the French Revolution people have to take considerable time and effort to put down. And their Napoleon was supposed to have gone there, I believe, so assigned by the directorate, and he basically refused and went AWOL and went and ate croissants instead. So the Verdun Steel Inferno did do very well in the CSRs as well. So, and there's Napoleon. Am I missing somebody in the chat here? Oh, Jester's here. Thank you, Jester, for stopping by. Hopefully you're doing okay down there in hellish swamp-like Florida. Not swamp-like, it is a swamp. It's not like a swamp, it is a swamp. Yeah, I'm not crazy about the cover for Verdun. Everything else about the game actually looks nice. I just don't like the box cover. So Vendée 93, that's definitely intriguing, and I will definitely keep an eye on that. Napoleon's Conquest is also supposed to be pretty fun. I would call this definitely a Wario type of thing. It's got some mechanics that we would ordinarily associate with Euros, but is essentially a strategic level Napoleonic war game. So I can, in principle, get behind that. Game dependent. Ryan Citro, thanks for stopping by. Yes, it was quite nasty, actually. I mean, there was plenty of nastiness in the French Revolution, let's face it, but the rebellion in the Vendée was bad. They would like load prisoners onto boats and then sink the boats. It was not great. So, oh yeah, I need all the help I can get, Jester. Thank you so much. If folks, like and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. Ways to support the channel in the video description and all that. So this looks decent too. I got a buddy relatively locally that's got this, so I will try it with him before I move on to actually purchasing it. But the Vendée game, I may just push the button on that when that comes out. The other thing about Fellowship of Simulations, which is a French company, by the way, is that they will be taking over the Eagles of France series from Walter Vodovsky. That was previously published by Hexasim. And that is a series, it's regimental level Napoleonics. So it's kind of Napoleonic Grand Tactical. It is a very impressive series, and I will be monitoring that quite closely. Mike Reed says that Napoleon's Conquest is much more interesting than GMT's Napoleonic Wars. I have played GMT's, that's the Mark McLaughlin Napoleonic Wars. I've played that several times and had a great time with it every time. So, Richard Coker, welcome back to the show. Just trying to catch up on the chat here. We're not too far behind. All right, so moving on to Hexasim. This is another publisher, French publisher, that I am once again reasonably familiar with. They only have 24 products listed here, which I found intriguing. Because I've always felt like they had more product than that. And a couple of these are not even their products, like their version of 1989 Dawn of Freedom, which is a game I have played and do not like, by the way. Best intro game to Napoleonic. Well, great question. It kind of depends what you're specifically interested in. You want like a strategic game, a tactical game. Tactical game, Commands and Colors Napoleonics is a great introductory war game in general and a lot of fun to play. I do like the OSG games from Kevin Zucker and the Operational Studies Group. ID Jester, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Now, support is always appreciated. This will go into the bookshelf fund too. Offhand, what else would be good? For like a strategic level Napoleonics game, there's that new thing from Larry Harris coming. I'm not sure how beginner friendly that's going to be, and it's definitely going to be a space hog. Napoleon, which is sort of a Napoleonic solitaire game where you play Napoleon himself. That's a Ted Racer game that is just now releasing from GMT. That's worth a look, and I would imagine that is probably not obscenely complicated. Good call. So we've Napoleon at Waterloo, yes, and you could, if you look up Napoleon at Waterloo, there's a print and play version on BGG. So if you want to print and play it, that's fine. But for a game that SPI gave away for free back in the 70s, this thing is annoyingly collectible at this time. Branching off of the Napoleon at Waterloo system, you had the Napoleon at War quad, and then that sort of evolved into Napoleon's Last Battles, all of which are from SPI, all of which were published no later than 1981 or 1982, and all of which are relatively difficult to get nowadays. So I don't necessarily recommend that. But the quads SPI quads do generally represent a pretty good jumping in point to any particular topic that they might cover. The first thing I'd point you to is probably Commands and Colors Napoleonics. You're not going to gain a huge amount of tactical insight from that game, but you're going to have fun playing it, and that's the most important thing. John C. Wolfdog mentions the SPI quads. John C. mentions Napoleon by Columbia Games. I should have thought of that too. That is an operational treatment of the 1815 campaign. That is a really nice package that Columbia has put together. This is an all-time classic. This game's been around since the 70s, early 70s at that, and has been in print the vast majority of that time. Yeah, that's what this is, like alt history Napoleonics, and I just don't know that I'm super enthused about that. In fairness, the Columbia Napoleon is really nice. I have an unboxing video if you want to see what you're getting in that. It's not that you're getting a lot of components in it. It's not that component heavy of a game, but the components that you are getting are really, really nice. The Napoleonic 20 games, again, I think these were from Victory Point Games. These are well regarded, but they're also all out of print and relatively difficult to get. So there's that. This is true. Mean Joe Green points out, as I should have remembered, that there is a version of Napoleon's Last Battles in print right now from Decision Games, but I don't actually like the graphics on the current Decision version, to be honest. The map is fine, or maps, I should say. And I'm sure the game's fine because it's a classic, but I don't like the counter art. I have to admit. I'm not sure who this was. I know the game you're talking about, but I'm not sure. I'm remembering the publisher of this off the top of my head. Hopefully I got him. GMT, that's a good point. This actually might still be available. And you should be able to pick this up from, say, Noble Knight or maybe Enterprise Games or somebody like that. GMT's Fading Glory, which is, I think, 4 or 5 of the Napoleonic 20 games. I want to say 4. Published in a really nice package with mounted boards and all that fancy stuff. Ooh, good call. But no, these guys are not on my list. I'm not sure I've even heard of these guys. Yeah, so I heard this. Maybe I should ask Doc about this when next time I talk to him, which will be in a couple of weeks. I have heard something about this, and they made an announcement, but then we have heard nothing since then, and it's been several years, so I'm not sure where this is at. I don't know if they are still holding the rights to those things or not. Three Crowns Games. Oh, I think I do know who this is. Let's finish Hexasim up, but let's pull them up. All right. So Hexasim. The things I have from Hexasim are the 4 Eagles of France games. So there's Austerlitz, Waterloo, Ligny, and Quatre Bras. They have not done Wavre. Right? That is an accurate statement. And then I have Napoleon Against Europe, which is a Stanislaw Thomas design, and is kind of similar in his kind of evolving treatments of the strategic level Napoleonic topics. So if you've seen Nations in Arms or Pitt's War, those are, or Le Grand Empire, if you're French, which I want to say was from a publisher we'll be getting to, if I'm remembering that correctly, then you pretty much have the picture of what the game is. Although it's area movement, unlike Nations in Arms, but like Pitt's War, let me put it that way. And I think unlike Le Grand Empire as well. All right, so Three Crowns Games. Are these who I think they are? So apparently these guys are Swedish. This is not who I was thinking of, by the way, and I have seen these products. These are not bad prices either. 35, 50 euros. That's $40, something like that, if that, depending on what the going rate is. Stargard Solstice, so they got some East Front stuff happening here. A lot of this is actually East Front stuff, to be fair. This might be worth a look. Three Crowns Games. We've got Pax Baltica, which is just a localization. Let's look at Stargard Solstice here. So, decent looking counters, decent looking map. I think these might be Ziploc games. That's plausible, which explains the price. These guys are probably worth a look. No, I've seen, because these covers are pretty punchy, I think. I think these are quite strong covers. They remind me a little bit of something you might see out of Revolution Games, but I think these are quite strong covers, and they don't look anything like the covers from Tactica e Strategia, which we will see when we get to them. Remember, we were originally at least doing this in alphabetical order. So yeah, Three Crowns Games might be worth a look here. Doesn't actually say that they're in Sweden, but I will take the chat's word for it that they will be. Oh, very good. Mike Reed points out that they actually were the original Pax Baltica and that GMT did the second version, and that's right here, 2009, Pax Baltica. Great Northern War, 1700 to 1721. Stefan Ekstrom. Yeah, the GMT cover is nicer. I'll tell you that. That's not a great cover. But their more recent covers, I think, are actually really nice. Patchwork Pictures, thanks for stopping by. So yeah, Three Crowns Games, good catch. I hadn't picked up on that. You know, I said this up front. I'm not going to catch them all. So I'm not good at Pokemon. So I think we've covered, I guess the one other thing that I'll mention from Hexasim is, well, there's two other things, actually. So on the one hand, we've got this Tenkato Itsu, I probably mutilating that, which is a tactical battles in feudal Japan, and this is absolutely friggin' stunningly gorgeous. This is a beautiful game. So if you're into just like super duper pretty games, this is something that maybe you want to take a look at. It's really, really nice looking. And then the other two that I'll mention are Liberty Roads and what's the other one? Victory Roads, which are Liberty Roads is West Front, Victory Roads is East Front, Liberty Roads is West Front. They're both World War II games. They're quite highly regarded. There is a Stalingrad Roads game coming, I think, this year, if not imminently, from Nuts Publishing. So this is another series that has hopped from Hexasim to another publisher. Yeah, I can't speak to the mechanics, but there is some video, at least I've watched some video on it, but it's been ages and I don't trust my memory. But yeah, there is some video on Tenkato Itsu, or however we're saying that. Ooh, geez. Yeah, so Warstorm. All right. We're having that problem again, I see. So it encourages me to investigate the Firefox for the stream purposes. All right. Anyway, no, this is not my problem. This is a Chrome problem where the tabs are crashing. So the Warstorm series is Nico Scooby's game system, and let me look that up independently to see who the publisher is. Warstorm. Here we go. Okay, well, apparently Warstorm series is the name of the publisher. And by Juan Carlos Cebrian, designer of some stuff for Critical Hit, but don't hold that against him. And Nico Scooby, whose work we're all super duper familiar with right here. And they've done a number of things in that Warstorm series, including this Alas Barricadas, which also done by Compass. So there's some interesting things here. The Warstorm series itself is a tactical World War II tactical system. So that's worth a look as well. No, they were originally, Empires in Arms was originally published by ADG, the Australian design group, and designed by Harry Rowland and I think Greg Pinder, as I recall. Not 100% sure on Pinder, but I'm positive about Harry Rowland. So that was originally from Australian Design Group, same people that do World in Flames, and got passed over to Avalon Hill. Recent buzz has been that Harry would like to redo it under ADG again, but I don't have a lot of confidence that that's actually going to happen. I think John, I think we did hear from one or two people that they've gotten their shipping notifications through somebody, presumably not GMT. Now, there may have been, I'll caveat this, there may have been a European version of Empires in Arms available too, but the two that were available here, at least notionally, were the ADG ones and the Avalon Hill ones. So, all right, so moving on from that HiSo game. This is a publisher that I have heard of, and they have a number of really, really well-regarded games that I have not played. So probably stuff, let's see here. There's not a ton of games here. They've only got 10 things listed, but the games that they have done seem to have had a lot of impact, right? So you've got Friedrich and Maria. One is about the game, War of the Austrian Succession. One is about the 7 Years' War. At least I assume it's 7 Years' War, Friedrich. Yep, that's 7 Years' War. So, and these are both very highly regarded games. These are basically operational point-to-point games. Also pretty attractive as well. Wir sind das Volk. I have not played this, but I have actually seen it on a table at Winterfest of all places. And this is sort of fall of communism in Germany post-World War II. Friedrich and Maria, any of this Histo game stuff will pop up at Noble Knight. I can tell you that. Maybe I've heard this. I've heard that Maria is the better of the two, but I mean, your own topical interest is going to be a determining factor in which game you prefer, right? Some people are going to get more out of a 7 Years' War game than a War of the Austrian Succession game. So we'll do Noble Knight as soon as we finish talking about Histo game here. So this is from Friedrich. Napoleon's Triumph. So this is one of the Rachel Simmons games. Napoleon's Triumph is Austerlitz. There's Bonaparte at Marengo, or Triumph at Marengo. This pictured here is the new version that came out, I think, last year. It's supposed to be Rachel Simmons' last game. These are brilliant games from what I've heard. I haven't played any of them. Patrick Picture says Maria can be played by 2 players. I would hope so. Most war games can be played by 2 players, but there are exceptions. There are fewer exceptions than I would like there to be. I don't like playing Churchill or Triumph with a bot. Let me put it that way. And I don't like playing Triumph and Tragedy without 3 players. So, all right. So what else do we got from Histo games? Napoleon's Triumph. We've covered Maria already, and you can see, I think, that the look for Maria is very similar to Friedrich. But I'd like to pick those up at some point because they're very, very highly regarded. And I wouldn't mind having any of these Rachel Simmons games either, but these are really hard to get and rather expensive, whereas Maria and Friedrich tend to be more or less continuously in print. But this Triumph at Marengo, this recent version of Triumph at Marengo, was published relatively recently and may still be available. I'm not sure. All right, so I'm actually not behind on the chat, which is rather a shock. So before the screen crashes again, let's hear from our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsors of the Counterclipping Show.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more. Going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at. Complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world. Just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
All right, so big thanks and shout out to our good friends at Noble Knight, the sponsors of the Counterclipping Show. And don't forget about the affiliate link in the video description. I am not ready to announce the new campaign until there is like money, like store credit. They report it like once a month because they do it manually. So I'm just waiting for that to announce the next campaign. So if you're going to buy stuff anyway, use the affiliate link and I will get a small kickback in the form of store credit, which will go toward the next campaign when I announce it, which hopefully will be next week. I don't promise that because I got to wait for them to turn the credit around, but I would like to start the next campaign with a balance of more than 0. Let me put it that way. So, all right. So, about Bert Matus, welcome to the show. Shout out to Noble Knight trip a couple weeks ago. Got $2,000 in trade. Thought very fair against buying just shy of that in War Games. Got Last Chance for Victory, Numbered Heroes. Fantastic games, by the way. And when we go, I'm planning to do a road trip up there sometime later this year. If Fucko is still here, he's going to get dragooned into that particular trip, and possibly Brant as well. And if that happens, then there will definitely be several boxes of stuff that I will take up to them to trade in. I've got like 110 issues of Dragon magazine. I just don't need 110 issues of Dragon magazine. They take up, magazines in general, take up a lot of space that I don't want to spend the space on, right? Their second, well, you don't have Noble Knight in Europe, but check Second Chance Games, and for that matter, check Noble Knight if you can. You might still get nailed on VAT, but if you spend over a certain amount of money, you can get free shipping. So if shipping is the big problem, then or go in with a couple of people on a big order. So it's totally worthwhile. There could be a Noble Knight meetup. That's a thing that has been discussed, but certainly we are not ready to announce any such effort at this time. So, well, so I bought when they, I don't know if it's 300 issues. My memory says the first 150 issues were in that Dragon Magazine CD set. Maybe it was 300 issues. I don't know. And I actually bought that. I got the physical CDs. So I'm legally clear on that. So yeah, I do have them all in PDF, and I don't need the physical magazines. There's one issue that I might hang on to, that I'll probably hang on to. It's issue number 4, which is the earliest Dragon that I have. And it's the Empire of the Petal Throne special issue. So I'll probably hang on to that. But barring that, I don't need any of the rest of that stuff. I mean, is there good stuff in it? Sure. But I can get the good stuff out of the PDF, so I don't have to store the magazines. So in any case, they do, but I don't have that carrier capability at this time. So maybe at some point. Don't think I haven't thought of that, because I can drive and rant at the same time. I might. It's possible. I've got a lot of dragons in this general vicinity. I'd have to check, and they're kind of all over the place. They're in several different boxes at the moment. All right. In any case, let's move back on to the topic. So moving on to our next publisher, which is Nuts Publishing. So this is, very catchy name, and they've got at least 3 things coming out in the relatively near future, one of which is Stalingrad Roads, mentioned before. They're also the localization publisher for a bunch of other stuff, but the things that they have, we're obviously going to have to do this by year of release. So the things that I'm aware of is this Italia, Stalingrad Roads. They did The Hunt, which I believe got a CSR nomination, and they're the localized publisher. Well, no, they're the main publisher for We Are Coming Nineveh, which is very highly regarded. All right, so this is World War I Italy. This looks phenomenal. I am super, super intrigued by this. This looks operational World War I. Yep, sign me up. Now, we'll see it about the campaign. This might be this is like toward the end of World War I, so we may see more motion here than we would see in a lot of the rest of them. The Undaunted series, I would call the primary publisher for the Undaunted games to be Osprey. If David's here, maybe he could clarify that. I don't think he is. Alistair, you're killing me. You're killing me here. You're killing me here. But I would wholeheartedly support this merger, I think. So, yeah, I've got some dungeon magazines too, but not a lot of them. Ooh, nice. Justigard mentions that this is the same series as Somme 1918, Bloody Spring, and Marne 1918, Friedensturm. So, yeah, very interested. Stefan Seneschal is the designer here. Very interested in seeing what these guys do with this. And there appears to be a card component to this as well. But, hey, I don't care. If I get a hex map, I'm happy, right? So it looks, there's not much of it. This is not out yet. This looks really impressive from what I've seen of it so far. I would say that I have other stuff that is probably higher anticipation, but this is really exciting. This is up there. So, no, what ends up happening is that you'll have a primary publisher. Let's say that this is actually a perfect example. So let's go to, yeah. All right. So we've got Imperial. This is the list of stuff published by Nuts Publishing, and you see Imperial Struggle on here. Now that's a GMT game. So what this means is that Nuts Publishing, which is a French publisher, is publishing some localized version, probably in France, of this game under license from GMT. That's typically what that means. So, I really, that's weird, but okay. So this is Stalingrad Roads. This also looks fairly impressive. This is what it sounds like, right? It's case blue, folks. I mean, it doesn't have the whole Caucasus on it, but there is overlap here in subject matter. Obviously, the scale is very different. This is a one map game, and looks pretty impressive as well. And I love my East Front stuff, so I am happy with this. Nicola Redent. I'm not sure how to silence the silent letters on that. If they don't, it's really a missed opportunity, isn't it? In fact, they should call it Nuts the Game, right? That would be completely perfect, and I think a genius marketing move. Okay, so David Zell says that Stalingrad Roads is out, and he got a copy from Noble Knight. Outstanding. So Stalingrad Roads should be, I was going to say if it's not out, it's coming out like imminently. But yeah, the other two, Italia and what was the other one? What was the other one? There was a third game that they had in the pipeline that should be out before or around the end of the year as well. North American publishers should engage with Nuts to publish locally I mean, I'm all for that. That's up to our North American publishers, however. But you'll notice that like GMT stuff tends to make it over there. Somebody's picking it up. That's less true with somebody like Compass, although there's been some exceptions to that. In that Compass has picked up some and published some European games domestically, which is another phenomenon that I heartily approve of. So yeah, some really interesting things coming from Nuts. And of course, 2 games in one box, mixed Nuts. This, I mean, we could go on all night with this stuff. Mannery Mike got his Stalingrad Roads a couple of months ago from Miniature Market, which is not a bad place to order games. I used to buy games from them relatively regularly, but I typically will go from Noble Knight now for obvious reasons. And Second Chance. Yeah, but that's not like a localization. That's actually just getting a shipment from GMT. So, and as Brant mentions, yes, he does every Tuesday. He does the Tuesday News Day, which has a roundup of releases and stuff like that. But nobody can keep track of all that in their head. So there's that. I guess, I mean, we could go on all night, can't we? All right. So I'm moving on from Nuts Publishing because otherwise, and The Hunt, which is a submarine game, which it's got this weird cartoony cover, but if you look at the game, it actually looks reasonably simple and light, but intriguing. All right. And We Are Coming Nineveh, which has gone over extremely well. This is Mosul from 2017. This is an extremely well-regarded game. There are blocks. This was on tables at Origins, and I wanted to play it, but there was just no way to get time. Mannery Mike says that this is primarily salt and pepper games. Mike, you might be right, but every actual copy or photograph of copy I have ever seen says Nuts Publishing on the cover, and not Salt and Pepper Games. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying maybe somebody needs to talk to the people taking these pictures. So, all right, we got to talk about Osprey. Now, they're a relatively recent entrant into publishing non-miniatures things themselves. They've been doing, of course, they do the military books, which they've been doing for decades. And they've done miniatures rules in the past, but relatively recently started getting into board war games and role-playing games, believe it or not. So the big thing that the folks at Osprey have done, and again, they're kind of the primary publisher, you can get it from other places, is the Undaunted series from David Thompson and Treasure Benjamin. You know, Trevor's probably not going to be too upset with me for mispronouncing his name in that way. So, oh yes, no, you guys are right, of course. Yeah, the Hunt is Salt and Pepper Games. We Are Coming Nineveh is Nuts Publishing. Again, primary publisher. I think they're both available through both publishers though, or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, there's going to be too much to go through here, but the big things to keep an eye on for me anyway, from Osprey are the Undaunted games. They are also, at least, are one of the publishers of Bolt Action. Undaunted World War II fantasy. I mean, okay, why not? There's a science fiction Undaunted game coming. I think that's the next one coming. Undaunted Callisto 2200 or whatever it is, or 2100. I forget what the actual date on the box is, but it's something like that. And that's probably going to be tons of fun. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on Osprey, though. Parabellum Wargames Limited. These guys are in Italy. Am I right about that? No, I think these guys are Greek, actually. This is their website. They do some stuff that I wouldn't necessarily assume as our board war games, but I'm looking for like an address here. So I don't know a lot about these folks. Let me put it that way. Now, they've got this Conquest thing, which appears to be their primary product. What drew me to this is this one, Conquest, The Last Argument of Kings. Is this based on the Joe Abercrombie novels, is my question. And this is totally a set of miniatures rules, fantasy miniatures rules. So if I had to guess, I'd say that's probably not. These guys do anything but miniatures? Because I don't see anything but miniatures here. So, I mean, they've been doing minis game rules for a while. Their RPG entries, that's relatively new. There's a whole pile of people in the chat here who speak very highly of We Are Coming Nineveh. So that's totally worth investigating. And I will acquire a copy of that too, when we put it that way. All right. So Parabellum, I think we're skipping them because I think they just do miniatures, and I'm not sure how they ended up on my list. I think it's because there are actually two companies called Parabellum. There's Phalanx. Now, Phalanx is another publisher whose list is going to be cluttered up with a bunch of stuff that we don't care too much about because we already know about it. Like we've all heard of Twilight Struggle. There are, yes, that is correct. There were 4 designers, 2 of which were new designers, and they did get an award nomination for that. So what am I actually looking for here? They've done a bunch of relevant stuff, right? Hannibal, Rome versus Carthage. They did a very fancy edition of that. Mare Nostrum, I'd consider Wargame adjacent. They've done a bunch of GMT localizations. They did another edition of Hannibal, Rome versus Carthage, plus Hamilcar, plus the legendary U-boat, which literally nobody is talking about anymore, plus a new version of Successors, plus this 1944 Race to the Rhine, which I've heard some people say good things about, although it looks like, once again, not my bag. Yeah, there's, Alistair, there's blocks, and there's single-sided blocks, so I would assume, I don't know if there's a solo mechanism in it or not. Oh, okay, so Brant says there's a solo system, so it sounds like you're fine. I will say that in terms of like physical component quality and stuff like that, the Hannibal and Successors games have been very impressive. Some people have actually called them overdone. I'm not really sure what that means. Although, I don't think, I'm not sure how seriously to take that criticism. Let me put it that way. So we're moving on. How do we get back to Fellowship of Simulations? We're moving on from Phalanx because they've just got a lot of stuff. Pratson Editions is next. Now, I do have one product from Pratson Editions. So Pratson Editions is basically Didier Ruiz's personal imprint. That may be oversimplifying because they have published things from other designers, but the great majority of the stuff that they have done is Didier Ruiz stuff. So there's a number of interesting pieces here. Le Vol d'Eagle, this is Flight of the Eagle. This is basically like a formalized set of Kriegspiel rules for Napoleonics. I have the first volume. I've never played it. It is pretty interesting looking. They also have Le Retour de l'Empereur and Le Grand Empire. So this is kind of a weird duck because it's actually kind of set up like the ASL starter kits in a way, in that you can just get the first set and it's got some of the rules. and some scenarios, and then, or you can buy volume 2, which has all the rules that are in volume 1, plus some more rules, plus a bunch of different scenarios, or you can buy volume 3, which has all the rules in volumes 1 and 2, plus some more new scenarios. So if you want all the scenarios, you got to buy all 3 volumes. But if you are just interested in the rules, then you can get away with just buying probably volume 1, but certainly volume 3. Now, the other thing that they did is Le Grand Empire. This is another Stanislaw Thomas, and this is players of Empire, not Empires in Arms, but Nations in Arms will find this very familiar. Same designer as Nations in Arms and Pitt's War and Napoleon against Europe. So Stack Limit says, so yeah, if I was going to run Kriegspiels, and I have no intention of doing that, that's the first place I would look, is the Flight of the Eagle. I will pronounce it in English because my French is terrible. This is not a Brant. You know who to ask this question of, and it is not me. So ask Jim. He will know. So Petra Picture says the Kickstarter kept doing so well they didn't know what to do with all the money. So Signet Ring. Who needs a Signet Ring in their game? I would agree with that. I don't really need that. Now, this is one that I actually might want to pick this up. I think there are some English rules floating around for this. I doubt they came in the box. It is not a monstrously expensive game to buy. On the other hand, I do have Nations in Arms, so maybe I don't need this. And I have Pitt's War and Napoleon against Europe. So there's that. All right, well, if Jim says it, then I'm going to take Jim's word for this. So this looks pretty interesting as well. Several of their other things, this La Bataille de Leipzig, this is, I got caught pants down on this saying something stupid. This is not a La Bataille game. This is what's the series called? Vive l'Empereur. It's a regimental level Napoleonic tactical game. And there have been several volumes in the series, not all of which were published by Pratson Editions. So you've got Le Retour de l'Empereur, Quatre Batailles en Espagne, Trois Batailles en Allemagne, and La Bataille de Hanau. Those are all from Legion war games. And then there's this Auerstadt 1806, and there's several other ones in here too. So this is a pretty well-regarded system that I have not played, and I don't have any of them, but I'd actually like to check this out. I'd like to do a compare and contrast between this and the Eagles of France series, which I do have. So, I mean, I agree with that, but think about what is now being called Glory and Empire was originally called On Battles, which was absolutely the worst thing I could think to name a game, because you can't search for it. You search for On Battles, you're going to get a bunch of random shit. You're going to get Phil Saban's book before you get this new thing coming from Lock and Load. So, well, we've got, I forgot Vento and Nuovo. We might get to them. We'll see. But I do have VUCA Sound of Drums and Thin Red Line lined up. I was not going to forget them because I've got product from them. So, all right. So we're moving on from Pratson Editions. Our Snafu store or Snafu Design or Snafu Studio. So this is a game store in Portugal that has very recently started to publish games on their own. And those games that they have done have gotten reasonably warmly received, not necessarily here in the US because nobody even knows that there's a game publisher in Portugal. But this is them. But that's a different La Bataille, right? So that's the La Bataille system. I was starting to do the publishers in alphabetical order, but we did get a bit sidetracked by people I forgot. So yeah, they've got some fairly interesting looking stuff. This Ambon is pretty interesting looking. This 12 Hours at Malame, I came within a couple inches of playing that. And a bunch of other stuff. Their stuff is all relatively small or up to this point, but their first box game is coming, I think, next year. This Ambon game looks pretty interesting. 12 Hours at Malame, that's airdrop on Crete. That looks good. This is a fabulous game. I think people should be all over this. People are scared of the map. I don't know why. You get used to it in 10 minutes. It is a fabulous game, and I am all over this. And this will be published by Snafu Design or Snafu Studio or Snafu Store or whatever they're calling it. So, Yeah, see, the problem is the live stream's like an hour or two, and I'm not going to watch an hour or two for 10 seconds worth of combat or content. Just somebody tell me what the hell's going on. That's what I'm asking for. What the hell's going on? And then somebody asked on Facebook, hey, what the hell's going on? And they got an answer like, oh, just watch the live stream. It's 2 hours. I don't want to watch the 2 hour. I don't know what it is, but it's longer than I wanted it to be for the relatively small amount of information that I care about, which is only one of the 3 Kickstarters that everybody's up in arms about anyway. We have skipped over Neva Ad Hoc and Ludo Press, but I don't know anything about them. So maybe we'll have an episode 2. All right, so moving on from Snafu, which is another up-and-coming publisher. They've only been publishing stuff for the next couple of years. Plague Island is in the U.S. as far... are they in the U.K.? I think they're in the U.K., actually. I did not do Plague Island. They've done 2 games so far, Sparta and 2 Minutes to Midnight. And 2 Minutes to Midnight was warmly received. It didn't work for me. It did not work for me. This is so weird because I felt like they were one of the companies that got it for a while, and I'm not sure they're not now. I just think there were some behind the scenes problems that are personal problems, so nobody wants to talk about it, and people generally like David, so they don't want to talk about it, so nobody wants to talk about it. And I'm not gonna anything that I could say about it would be speculative anyway, so I'm not gonna say anything. So I am pretty convinced that there have been some updates recently that I have seen, and I believe that all of the things that are late will eventually show up. It's just that people are frustrated, and that's understandable. So, not to say that you can't take that too far, because you totally can, and some people have, but most people have been reasonable about it. All right, Sound of Drums Games. These folks are in Switzerland. They have 16 products listed here on BGG, and a grand total of, I believe, 2 of them are already out. Those are 1793, Patriots and Traitors, and the thing that I showed you, Battles of Napoleon Volume 1, ILAO 1807. Is it 3 games? Because it might be. They've got this Assault, which is the 2nd game in a series, and you'd never know this was from the same publisher, because I assume it to be in a series anyway. Yeah, so this is the previous game I was thinking, Assault Red Horizon 41. There's some things about this that have impressed me that I don't own any of these games. There's some things about Assault Red Horizon 41 that sounded fairly intriguing to me, but this box scares me off. This box looks like somebody put it together in Corel Draw in 1995. So this is not a good cover for the 2020s. This, on the other hand, is a very strong cover, and I like it a ton. And this will be coming from Sound of Drums at some point this year. At least it's listed for this year. Who knows what the actual calendar looks like. So this might be worth a look, and we can see it is a hex game with cards and strangely shaped chits and stuff like that. So Brant says it's Assault Games, but I don't know. Maybe they just switched graphic designers, or the graphic designer moved to Photoshop from Corel Draw or whatever the hell he was using before. So, and I'm only I've seen the innards of it. The insides look fine. It's only the box that I just viscerally dislike. All right, next up. Yeah, we covered Sound of Drums. There's not a ton to say about Sound of Drums, but they've only published like 2 or 3 things so far. They did have some production problems on ILAO, and then there was some other problems with ILAO, and I talked about that in the ILAO video, and we're not going to cover that ground again. But there were some counter problems, but they're aggressively working to address those counter problems. And I think that the series itself is so promising that I think it is definitely worth keeping an eye on, and hopefully they can put those small snags behind them. So, in any case, next up is, and I don't know anything about this 1793 Patriots and Traitors, but it's a French Revolution game, so that by itself is interesting. All right, next up is Strategia. These guys are in Poland. They've done 21 products according to BGG. I've heard of them as a publisher, but I'm not really familiar with any of this stuff. This Albuera, was this yeah, okay. So this is interesting because if you look at this product, this is a 2023 release. This is 14 Days in June, the Waterloo campaign, by Steve Pohl, actually. 2-player game on a hex grid with little stand-up dudes. Not sure I'm a fan of that in particular. This looks like, to be honest, this looks like a Tactica Strategia box. But Strategia Mod has been around for a little bit now, and they've done some things that have captured some attention. Here's Festung Breslau, which I think also pulled some attention. Okay. But I don't have any personal input on any of their stuff. Brant says their site hasn't changed since December. That's not even weird in the wargaming hobby, Brant. I'm sure you must agree. So moving on from Strategia, we have Tactica e Strategia, which is the other Polish publisher that I'm aware of. And these folks have done rather a lot of stuff. We are rating by, wow, okay. There's a listing here called Miscellaneous Game Magazines. I used to subscribe to Paper Wars magazine. This was a I'm thinking of a different magazine. Trying to remember what it was called now. It wasn't Paper Wars, because Paper Wars is obviously still around. But it's published by Compass now. Anyway, not sure why that's listed here. But you'll notice that their games tend to have this rather distinctive cover art style, which is not a bad. Nice. All right. Well, I guess we're not going to look at that one. But you can definitely see that their games all kind of have this box look, which gives them a bit of a uniform look. And then if you look at the games, the innards generally look okay. You can normally get their stuff domestically. I know you can get it from Noble Knight. Wolf Dog says that he had their Bulge game, that it was pretty pedestrian. Clash of Arms site has changed in the last couple of months. I can confirm that. The last couple of maybe even weeks. Now you'd never know that looking at the front page, but you can actually order La Bataille de Wavre now, and that was not up there that long ago. So these guys have a lot of stuff. I don't really know anything about them. I think the Player's Aid has done some a video or two on their stuff. They have so much product that it's tempting to investigate it just because of that, if nothing else, right? I mean, they've got like multiple Market Garden games, 21st Century Battles, Poland 39, which is a lot more interesting. I've said this for years. That's a more interesting campaign than everybody seems to think it is. This is an area movement game, though, which is not a huge fan, but you know, whatever. And then there's this big Kursk game, which is a hex game. So these guys might be worth a look. And like I said, might be able to find much of this stuff on the Noble Knight site. All right. We're going to move on to Thin Red Line. These guys are easy because they've only done 7 products, which are 3 series, which are the 1985 series composed of 1985 Under an Iron Sky, Deadly Northern Lights, and Sacred Oil, and then the C3 series, which starts with Less Than 60 Miles, continues with Dogs of War, and then Festung Hamburg, and then the relatively recent 2024 release, The Fate of All, which is their Ancients entry. Other than The Fate of All, everything is like near future hypothetical. Folks, I'm going to need to take a quick break here, so I will be right back. Shit. All right, we're back. And let's pull this back up. All right, so Thin Red Line Games. I don't have the C3 series, but I do have everything else. So I've got 4 of the 7 here. And I have been consistently fairly impressed with what Thin Red Line has been doing. So Commando Solo mentions that less than 60 miles and a couple of these, like Under an Iron Sky has had 3 printings so far, and there might end up being like a 4th combined edition. There was some scuttlebutt about that. They release roughly a game a year, maybe 2. So this is an artisanal publisher that has taken a lot of time and care with what they're doing. For those who are concerned about the use of AI art, the Fate of All does include some AI art. So do your own research on that. I bought it anyway, so take that for what it's worth. The complexity tends to be high in the 1985 games. I can't speak to the C3 games. I would call the Fate of All, so far from what I've seen, about the high end of moderate complexity. So, Molotov Cockatiels games. I should have Bill on to talk about it. Actually, it was recently released. Actually, last 2 months or so, Bill, something like that. So, all right, next up, I don't know what I'm going to have to say about Udo Greavy games, but they're still around as far as I know. Let's, yeah, okay, but most of what they seem to actually do is just like localized versions of other things. So I don't know that there's like any product that's unique to them. I'd be curious about this. So, I mean, this is the classic Wargamer problem, right? Love this game, don't have the time to play it as much as I would like. So, Assyrian Wars. That sounds interesting. Where's their Assyrian Wars? Udo Greavy Games, published in 2005. Ooh. Okay. Color me interested in this. Ain't the best looking map I've ever seen, but it's 2005 too. That's almost 20 years old at this point. But topically, this could be very intriguing, though. I'll tell you that. Also, I believe they are the ultimate source or originator of the classic GMT counter trays. So, all right, and then we're going to move on. This is going to be tough too, folks, because you can see there's 249 games listed under Ve Victus, but a lot of them are magazine games. So let's go to year released and take a look at this one. 2 Years of Glory, 2 Années de Gloire, 2 Years of Glory. 4 Vital Napoleonic games reappear. So these are reprints. This should be the Jour de Gloire series, if I'm not mistaken. Indeed it is, by Frederick Bay, who I believe Fred Serval just interviewed. So check that out. Frederick Bay, I think, is a very important designer. So this is Jena, Eilau. What are the other 2? It says 4 battles. What are the other 2? 4 battles. Jena, I guess we could call Jena Auerstadt 2 battles, huh? Okay, so Eilau and Friedland are the other 2. So there you go. Okay, so this is a pretty new issue. This is, I'm looking for, and yes, these do include rules in English. That's why there's a big thing on there that says that. There should be, unless this wasn't a magazine issue, it might not, because not everything from Ve Victus is a magazine issue. Oh, well, I hope your French is good. So this is going to be a problem. I'm interested in this. I'm interested in this, trying this system out. So Jour de Gloire originates in the Triumph and Glory system designed by Richard Berg and published, I want to say through GMT, but Berg may have done a one game through Simulations Design. I'm not sure. They did 2 or 3 games through GMT, one of which is there's a Borodino game. There's a game called Triumph and Glory, which has 2 or 3 battles in it. And there might have been one other one, I'm not sure. The only Jour de Gloire game I have is the one that appeared in C3I magazine a few years ago. That is the Battle of Issy. And that is not a huge, well-known battle. Let me put it that way. The first place I would check would be Noble Knight. If barring Noble Knight, I would check with GMT. And if you get it from GMT, then they're shipping from GMT. So I don't know if they do boxed games or not, Molotov Cockatiel. They may be Ziploc games, but I can tell you that not absolutely everything they have done has been an issue of Vevictus magazine. But this has been. This is a Vevictus magazine game, and in fact, Magazine Vevictus, we have a magazine list, if it ever loads. Yeah, so there's like a couple hundred issues in a magazine. That's a lot. Yep, they're up to close to 200. There are some issues that don't have games, but most of them do have games. So at least a couple of the Jour de Gloire games have appeared in the magazine, though, I can tell you that. But not all of them have. I can also tell you that. So, I mean, if you're getting them from France, I wouldn't sweat it too much. Apparently, I've talked to people who've ordered from Hexasim, and they said it's not too bad. And they're in France as well. So Vevictus has a lot of stuff. They've covered a lot of territory. There's some very interesting games here. I can tell you that not all the older stuff, you might have trouble finding English rules for. I had a couple of issues pass through my hands at one point, and they were pretty old, from like the mid to late 90s, I think. And I could not find English rules online for any of the stuff that I had. Meandering Mike says that Hexasim is fast and Vevictus is glacial. So I cannot speak to that. So the other thing is that the ones I had, and again, these were older ones, did not have mounted counters. They had this sort of thin card type counters like you would have gotten in like a Steve Jackson Games game from the 90s. Not a big fan of that. But I think the more recent ones do have fully mounted counters. I think. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong about that. But yeah, highly respected company. It's a magazine that's been around for a long time now. They've done it, like I said, a couple hundred issues. Pretty good looking stuff. Then we come to one of the new kids on the block, Europa Simulations. They've been around. I want to say this is their 4th or 5th year of operating. That sounds approximately correct. They have a giant pile of stuff in the works. Including some stuff that looks extremely intriguing. I'm going to pull up some random stuff here. I want to say this was their... All right, I've just pulled up a bunch of random stuff that I either have something to say about or that I have. In Forest to Heaven, the invasion of Poland 1939. I am all over this. I am totally grabbing this. I think this is a very viable campaign to wargame out, and not very few designers have chosen to take on that challenge. But it looks terrific, as everything from VUCA. It looks terrific. I have no doubts that it will be a very deluxe presentation. There's also 1914 Knock Paris. Now, somebody said that these are pre-rounded counters, and I didn't think they were, but look at this. They totally are. This is like a big 3 or 4 map. I think it's 3 maps, but this is a big game. Is there a list of components? There isn't, but whatever. It's a pretty big game. I have seen it set up. There you go. Adam Misnick has some good recommendations here. If you're interested in Jour de Gloire, then 3 Days of Glory or 2 Years of Glory are all good buys. Now, I think VUCA has had some like development challenges, right? Because they're new at this. Yeah, they've still got to kind of nail down all the ramifications of that development process, but I think they will get themselves through that. And in terms of physical production quality, they're absolutely second to none. Monolith games in the Wargames category. So the Conan game, at least if we're talking about the Conan game I think we're talking about, which is the one that was on Kickstarter a few years ago, that's totally not a wargame. The other stuff I cannot speak to. but I have not really looked at them, so that's not a judgment one way or the other. Now, this was designed by Bertrand Meunier, and the companion game is coming out from Paul Hederer, 1916 Romania Prelude to Blitzkrieg. And I've been waiting for this for years. This was supposed to, I think, originally be using the Mike Resch system from GMT, and that just appeared to lose traction for whatever reason. I don't know what was behind that, but it will be coming out from VUCA. And I am here for it. And it says about 900 counters. 2 standard maps, standard Euro-sized maps, standard European-sized maps, I should say. I don't want to use the dirty E word. Okay, what was the other one? All right, so Enforced to Heaven, I'm all over that. I'm all over this. Traces of Hubris. This is the follow-up to Traces of War, which is sitting down here on the shelf, which is absolutely gorgeous. Tetsuya Nakamura designs in both cases, and these are both East Front operational. So, yeah, I'm here for that. Red Strike came out this past year. Topically, this is not really my thing, but man, this is an impressive package. It's a huge box. It's got a huge quantity of stuff in it. It's all gorgeous. This was extremely well received. A4 size, well, I don't know. All right. I want to say this was their first game, The Great Crisis of Frederick II. This is a point-to-point type of deal with a very impressive piece of art on the map. And this is a hard game to find nowadays. Noble Knight does pop up at Noble Knight from time to time. Traces of War, like I said, I have. This is Cherkasy Pocket, something like that. I forget exactly what it covers, but it's East Front operational once again. And again, Tetsuya Nakamura. I also have Crossing the Line, which is a Dirk Blenneman game. This also looks good. I have not tried to play this yet. And I do, if I didn't say, I do have Trace. What have I got from VUCA? I've got Traces of War, Crossing the Line, and Donnerschlag. Those are the ones I have. And I'll probably pick some other stuff up, as it comes out. So VUCA's impressed me considerably. And finally, we come to the lone Russian entry on the list, Zvezda. These guys, I'm not even digging for it, but these guys have done at least one war game. They did the original Richard Borg Samurai Battles. That's the Commands and Colors Samurai Battles game before it moved over to GMT. I don't know if that had anything to do with the current unpleasantness going on over there in that part of the world. That may or may not be the case. I have no information one way or the other. These guys have tons of stuff, very little of which appears to be relevant to wargamers, but certainly that would have been. And I don't vouch that there isn't anything else. It's just that they've got 200 plus items, and I don't know anything about most of them. So that is... There we go. That is the show, folks. So here's what's going on. We have been able in the last couple of weeks to get some actual like video content done. So scheduled for this week, for example, we finally have, and we did this like a month ago, and I just got it edited in the last week. So that's why. I've got a RPG flip through item, which will be on Thursday. That is for Wednesday. Sorry. That will be, the new product for Against the Dark Master. I've got an interview with the 10K Games team that'll be out on Friday, and then I may have an unboxing if something shows up in the next day or two, but I don't think that's going to be it. The favorite games, Jeff Beeler, for me are going to be the ones I already have. So things like El Gran Capitan, for example, which I'm incredibly stoked to try to play. The stuff from Europa Simulazioni, those Napoleon's Nemesis 1813 and Napoleon Invades Russia 1812. Those looked good. I felt like we were pretty good about staying on the topic tonight, and we had like a topic that would fill the show out, which is not always the case, right? So hopefully everybody got something out of this. And don't forget, if you're ordering stuff from Noble Knight, use my affiliate link. It's in the video description. I will get some credit, and I can actually buy some stuff again. That would be cool. In addition to my eBay purchase, I got another thing from eBay coming too, which was cheaper. It's a module for Lords of Creation. The shorts are scheduled out for the remainder of the week. You're going to continue to see those. I'm more or less I've got some longer form RPG-esque type of things in the works, but those take more effort to make. Ludofoil is another one I didn't get. There's several I missed, so just so we know. Assault Games, yeah, but Assault Games has 1 or 2 products, and we covered them through another publisher, so I don't feel bad about that. PSC's another one I probably should have mentioned. But there's going to be some more. If anybody wants to send me some more, we might do a part 2 of this. I'd love to do an Asian publishers too, but I know of like 2. So I don't know that I have enough content there to fill the show. Or Canadian publishers. There's a couple that Tompet Games. That's another good call. Colin Flanagan, thank you. I hope that this was informative. And the point, Hobby Japan's, there's like 2 Japanese publishers and a Chinese publisher that I'm aware of. Hobby Japan, is Hobby Japan still around? I mean, somebody over there is doing Command Magazine, and it could be Hobby Japan. I'm just not sure. So that'd be worth a discussion, but I don't think I can fill a whole show up with it either. So hopefully this has been informative. That was kind of the point, was to raise awareness that there's actually a lot of action happening in the board war game space over in Europe that we tend to not have great visibility on. So don't be shocked if this topic gets revisited in one way or another on one show or another at some point fairly soon. In the meantime, folks, it's been a great show. I would like to thank everybody for coming out. Don't forget to thumbs up the video and all that. Subscribe to the channel. Links to support it in the video description. Thank you, patrons, and everybody else who comes out here and participates in this delightful community week after week after week. And I would love to also say thanks for not fucking the chat up tonight, which could have happened. And I'm glad that it didn't, and I didn't have to treat anybody like a fucking child. So I appreciate that as well. I appreciate all of you. Everybody have a great rest of the night. And we got the show with Dan tomorrow at 7:30. I have no idea what we're doing, but it will be something, even if it's just an hour of Dan yelling incoherently and me talking over him, as has occurred on several shows in the past. So everybody have a great night, and we'll see you all again soon.